We're Arctic Monkeys. This is I Bet You Look Good on the Dance Floor. Don't believe the hype.
The Arctic Monkeys are a very popular UK band from the indie rock genre. Their discography, which consists of 6 albums and lots of B-sides, is up there with some of the best music the genre has to offer. And with the release of Tranquility Base Hotel and Casino earlier this year and it finally having time to sink into their discography, I figured there's no better time than to revive this long dead series and rank all of their albums, from worst to best. Easier than Metallica's because they only have 6 albums as opposed to 10, but still, there's a lot to talk about. So, without any further ado, let's jump right in. Suck It and See is a very strange album. It comes off of the release of the rather experimental Humbug, which is an album that I'm not as massive of a fan as lots of people are. And it's a very weird experimental album, so for them to go from that to this kind of very safe release is a bit odd. This album also has a clash in style. It can go from fun, up-tempo rock jams to slow, contemplative tunes about Alex and fame. And it has a bit of a tone issue. As I'm a fan of the more up-tempo songs the Arctic Monkeys have done, I very much prefer the more up-tempo songs in the album. My favourite song here is the 2-minute jam, Library Pictures, which is probably the best written up-tempo song on the album. It also features the best riff on the album and one of the more quotable lines, "I'm in a vest."
Through curly strolls and metaphors and
Other songs I like on here are Don't Sit Down Cause I Moved Your Chair and Brick by Brick, the 2 most famous songs on the album probably. I also really like the track Suck It and See, which is one of the later tracks on the album. And it comes right after a long stream of just dull, boring tracks.
suck it and see you never know.
Such as Pile Driver Waltz, That's Where You're Wrong, Love is a Laser Quest, just dull, boring, generic, radio-friendly crap that just doesn't feel right to me. And I know I'm going to get a lot of hate for this, particularly by saying I don't really like Pile Driver Waltz, but it's not great. I really don't like the lyrics in that song. It's probably one of the worst songs they've ever done in my opinion. The Heartbreak Hotel metaphor is really cringy.
You look like you've been for breakfast at the Heartbreak Hotel and sat in the back.
So, Suck It and See is a mediocre album for me and gets a 4 out of 10. This is the album that shot them to fame in the more Tumblr crowd. It introduced a whole slew of fans to this band, particularly in America, where the Arctic Monkeys weren't as big as they were in the UK. So, for many people to say that this is their best album is a fair statement, given that it's the one that shot them into the mainstream again. In my opinion, however, it's not as musically interesting as some of the earlier work. I do feel that the tracks are very stale after multiple listens, but the stuff that's good on here is exceptionally good. The song Are You Mine, for example, is one of the best songs they've ever done, and is certainly up there with their best lead singles.
And satisfaction feels like a distant memory, and I can't help myself all I wanna ever say is are you mine?
The track Do I Wanna Know, despite being way too popular for its own good, has a really killer riff, and I really like the lyrics of that as well. And a lot of the other singles are really good as well. Snap Out of It's really fun, and I really like Why Do You Only Call Me When You're High. That's my other favourite on the album. However, there are some moments on here which I don't enjoy at all. Mad Sounds, I'm going to nominate as the worst song they've ever released. It's just got cringe lyrics, it's probably the most boring, bland thing they've done musically. And if we're talking about cringe lyrics, what sort of chorus is this?
Come on, come on, come on. Come on, come on, come on.
Number one party anthem would be a great song if not for that chorus. Same with One for the Road, actually. That would be a great song if not for the really irritating chorus. This album has a lot of good points, but it ultimately feels like a rather generic alt-rock album, and the Arctic Monkeys are so much more than that in my opinion. And of course, this was the one to shoot them into the mainstream, the one that just sounds like everything else. So, yeah, I do like this. The stuff that's good on here is really good, but there's just too much filler on here for me to rank it any higher than anything else they've done. So I'm going to give this a 6 out of 10.
Take it easy for a little while. Come and stay with us. It's such an easy flight.
Tranquility Base is a lot slower and a lot more different from anything the Arctic Monkeys have done previously. What essentially happened was there was a lack of guitar on here and they wanted to make a 70s space rock lounge album because that's just what you do when you get popular. So I figured, you know what, there's not a lot of guitar in here, I'm probably going to hate this, so I went in with my expectations below rock bottom. I couldn't be less hyped for this album if I tried. And you know what? I was wrong. This album was really good. The lyrics on here are super strong, particularly on the opening track, Star Treatment. I used to really dislike this song. I just thought it was Alex rambling nonsense over a piano, but then you actually listen to the lyrics, and it's one of the most quotable songs he's ever done. It's really good and really well written. Much like my favourite track on the album, 1 Point Perspective, which is the second track. That has the really good lyricism of Star Treatment, but also makes up for it with an amazing solo and some awesome high notes at the end.
Back there by the baby grand, did Mr. Winter Wonderland say, come here kid, we really need to talk. Bear with me man, I lost my train of thought.
Speaking of the high notes, Alex's vocals on here have really improved. This is probably his best song album, and I think that his voice is going to be exceptional live when I see him in September, which I can't wait for. The album does end up feeling a bit sort of samey sounding. When we get to the middle, like American Sports, Golden Trunks, 4 out of 5, they all kind of blend into one for me. But then we get to stuff like the world's first monster truck front flip and science fiction. Every monster truck front flip is essentially a glam ballad. Then you've got science fiction, which has this like really driving riff, which in my opinion sets it above almost everything else on the album. And then we get to Bat Phone, which has this amazing piano line, which is one of my favourite moments on the album. The title track as well has a really good piano line, like this synth that comes in just before the chorus comes, and it's really good. Of course, the track everyone's talking about is the Ultra Cheese, which is another boring piano ballad, but it's very well written as well. This album is really strong lyrically. It's not my favourite lyrically, but it's my favourite vocally. The album would be a lot better if maybe the other instruments were given a chance to shine. Like, only 1 Point Perspective really showcases the awesomeness of the guitar, because it has a really good solo in it. But other than that, the musicianship isn't as strong as I'd like it to be. It's definitely brave releasing this immediately after you get popular, and I respect them for that. And I do really like this album, so I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10.
She was close and she held me very tightly till I asked awfully politely, please, can I call you her name?
2009's Humbug is a really strange, darkly atmospheric album for the Monkees. and it features some of the best musicianship they've ever done. I was complaining about Tranquility Base's lack of excellent musicianship. This album is where it all is. The amazing riff work on Crying Lightning, the really wild instrumentation on Pretty Visitors, the funky riff on Dangerous Animals. Dance Little Liar is one of the slickest bass lines they've ever done, and is a really cool, dark, atmospheric song, and I love it.
Takes a lot less time.
Same with the opening of Fire and the Third. That is some really cool dark instrumentation. The song kind of changes from there, and I'm not really a fan of it after that, but the opening is really good, and it has me coming back to that song quite regularly, just for the opening. All sorts of guitar work are shown really, really well here. Humbug is really good. The big singles are Crying Lightning, which is my favourite track.
Past times consisted of the strange and twisted and deranged, and I hate that little game you had called Crying Lightning, and how you like to act.
And Cornerstone. Cornerstone is a really poppy song, and it's quite well written, but it's not a track that I regularly listen to. I'm not a massive fan of Cornerstone. This album has lots of good lyrical moments. The aforementioned Cornerstone, Dance Little Liar, and I really like the lyrics for Pretty Visitors. It's a lot of non sequiturs about getting famous, and it's really nice. I like the change in direction from the more indie rock sound of the first two. As much as I prefer those two, this album is still very strong, and I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10.
You used to get it in your fishnets, now you only get it in your nightdress. Discarded all the naughty nights for niceness, landed in a very common crisis. Everything's in order in a black hole, nothing seems to pity is the past though.
My second favourite Arctic Monkeys album is the second Arctic Monkeys album, Favourite Worst Nightmare. Now, the concepts they had on the debut, whatever people say, and that's what I'm not, they took here and kind of brought it to the mainstream, sort of. They lost some of the rawness and some of the energy, but replaced it with some deeper lyricism and some more experimental instrumentation. Lots of the tracks on here sound quite different to anything else they've ever done. My favourite tracks on here are the more up-tempo ones, as usual. The absolute banger that is Balaclava is my second favourite Arctic Monkeys song in general. It's a super underrated track about a guy robbing a bank, and it's the best thing. It's got such a good riff, it's such a great song to listen to, and it's one you have to listen to full volume whilst topping a ton in a car. It's perfect.
You find yourself in a skirmish where you wish you'd never been born. You tie yourself to the tracks and there isn't no going back. And it's wrong, 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 but we'll do it anyway 'cause we're a little bit of trouble.
Other really good songs on here, Old Yellow Bricks, the riff is phenomenal there. I also really like the closer, 505. That is insane. It's such a slow build-up until you hit that climax, and the climax is one of the best things. It's probably the best minute of any Arctic Monkeys song. The transition from the slow guitars to Alex yelling these fantastic lyrics, it's perfect. It's the perfect way to end this fabulous album.
But I crumble completely when you cry. It seems like once again you've had to greet me with goodbye. I'm always just about to.
I also really like the lead single, Fluorescent Adolescent, which made famous through the music video which clowns get beaten up and then being used in the In-Betweeners. It's great. It's a classic song, everyone knows it, it's really fun to sing along to, and it's one of my favourites on the album. The other really big single, Brian Storm, is, again, an absolute banger. It's one you have to play at full volume, and it's really fun to listen to.
Brian, top marks for not trying. So I love you to bless us with your effortlessness. We're grateful and so strangely comforted.
A lot of this album is just fun to listen to, and I can put it on at any time and just enjoy everything. Favourite Worst Nightmare is probably one of my most listened to albums ever, and it's a perfect Arctic Monkeys album, if not for Only Ones Who Know being placed directly in the middle of the track listing, killing the vibe. It's a good song, I like Only Ones Who Know, but it's just so slow. This whole album is filled with banger after banger after banger, and then you just get Only Ones Who Know in the middle. Why? This song is fine, but it's not banger level. It's not as good a song as the rest on the album. Oh, it's a shame, but I do love this album. It's a solid 9 out of 10. And of course, my favourite Arctic Monkeys album, Whatever People Say I Am, That's What I'm Not. This was their first album, and it was super popular in the UK. The 2 lead singles from this album, Bet You Look Good on the Dance Floor and When the Sun Goes Down, both hit number 1. And that's insane. From the first opening drums of View from the Afternoon, to the ending beauty that is A Certain Romance, every moment on this album is outstanding. This is probably in my top 10 of all time. This album is, again, one of my most listened to, and is easily my favourite lyrically Arctic Monkeys album. It's basically a concept album about a guy on a night out, and it's great. All the lyrics are just so relatable and so well put together, it's almost poetic. The songs that showcase this best are Fake Tales from San Francisco, which also has a killer bass line, and Riot Van, the slow track on the album, which has some beautiful guitar on it. These two are really good lyrically, and 2 of my favourite Arctic Monkeys songs purely for the lyrics alone.
As the microphone squeaks, the young girl's telephone beeps. Yeah, she's dashing for the exit. Oh, she's running to the streets outside. Oh, you saved me, she screams down the line. The band would fucking wank and I'm not having a nice time.
The big tracks on here, Dance Floor and When the Sun Goes Down, are both exceptional. Dance Floor has a killer opening, it's got some wild guitars, and it's the most famous Arctic Monkeys song for a reason. And When the Sun Goes Down, oh, the change when it goes from slow to amazing and heavy and fast, oh, it's brilliant. That song is phenomenal, and it's only like my 5th favourite on the album. That just shows the quality of songs on this album. Underrated gems include You Probably Couldn't See For the Lights But You Were Staring Straight At Me. That song has so many changes. It can go from jazzy riff to different jazzy riff, and it's awesome. And lyrically, it's up there with some of their best as well.
And now that you're more than a part in the play, it's slightly easier to think what to say.
Mardy Bum is one everyone likes, but for some reason wasn't released as a single. It's what Cornerstone should be. It's poppy, but it's exceptional. The lyrics are so good, and it's just a really cute song.
Just laugh and joke around. Remember cuddles in the kitchen, yeah, to get things off the ground. And it was up and away.
Dancing Shoes, which is another fun one. It's one you have to listen to at full volume. But then the track it goes into is Still Take You Home. Still Take You Home might just be one of my favourite songs in the history of ever. Probably top 5 of all time for me. And yeah, it's amazing. I love it, I love it, I love it. It's the best Arctic Monkeys song, no question. From the opening riff to the opening solo, and then the amazing shout along chorus, it's just such a fun song to listen to. It's one of my most listened to songs ever. And it's another full volume banger. It's just 3 minutes of pure intense guitar, and it's amazing. It's one, like, if you're sad, this is the song to perk you up. This is brilliant. It's amazing. One of the best songs ever made. No question.
But what do you know? Oh, you know nothing. Yeah, but I'd still take you home. Oh, yeah, I'd still take you home. So what do you know?
Are there any weak moments in the This album, not really. The closest it comes to being weak is Red Light Indicates Doors Are Secure, and that's got one of the best bass lines in their entire discography. So, there's really no weak song on this album. It's as close as an indie rock album comes to being absolutely perfect, and is certainly one of the best debuts ever made. Is there any question about what rating I'm going to give this? This is a 10 out of 10 album. It's in my top 10 of all time, it's one of my most listened to, one of the best of the 2000s, and it's perfect. It's flawless in every conceivable way. So yeah, that was my list. Feel free to trash me for not liking slow songs. I'm sorry. But yeah, if you enjoyed my ravings about how good the Arctic Monkeys were, then please leave a like, subscribe. Hopefully new videos will be coming soon. I'm getting back into the swing of things, and I really enjoy making this, so... How am I supposed to end a video? Do I just click?